Welcome to the Sports 2000 podcast. I'm Sue Stockdale, and in this series I talk to some of the people involved in this British sports car prototype series that gives drivers the chance to compete at some of the UK and Europe's finest circuits. Well, we've come to the end of the year, and it's a great moment to reflect on the highlights of the year and to look ahead to 2022. In a moment, I'll be talking to Roger Donnan, the club secretary for Sports 2000, to get all the lowdown from him about this year. And then we have a couple of great additional clips from conversations with two of the guests I spoke to earlier this year, Ross Hyett and Derek Bell. And then finally, looking ahead to 2022, we'll preview our next guest, who will be Howden Ganley, who set up Tiga Race Cars along with Tim Schenken in 1974. They've manufactured a wide range of cars, including the Pinto Sports 2000. Remember, you can leave us a review on this podcast, which will help us to reach a wider community of listeners. Just hop on over to sports2000.co.uk and click on the link for the podcasts, and you can do it straight from there. So on to my conversation with Roger. Roger, we've had 11 episodes this year featuring drivers, officials and sponsors for the Sports 2000 Championship. What's been the club's highlights for this season?
Nice to speak to you, Sue. I have to say, following 2019 with COVID, well, we had a very truncated season. It was fantastic to have a full season in 2021. We managed 13 rounds over 6 meetings with excellent attendance. Biggest grid we had was 31 cars, and the smallest 26. I think we had an average of 28 cars per event, which was really good. As always, close competition across all championships. And we had 4 different winners in the Duratec Championship. And in fact, in the Pinto Championships, we had 6 different winners across the 6 rounds and 13 events. So it's close.
That sounds really competitive. And what were your personal highlights from this season?
It was actually the fact that seeing all the club members working together so that we had a really good experience. We had people only too happy to help out in the paddock, helping out with the hospitality, helping out organising events such as the barbecue. So it all went really well, and that made me very pleased.
Well, that's one of the things that's been consistent from many of the guests we've interviewed, is talking about that camaraderie. So it's lovely to hear that you've experienced that for yourself. I'm wondering, in terms of who won the different championships, were there any of the people that we had spoken to earlier in the podcast series?
Yes, there were. Yes. In fact, the Duratec Championship was won by Tom Stockton, although that wasn't tied up until the very last event of the season. He was hard pushed by both Josh Law and Dominic Lesniewski, who didn't make it easy for him.
Wow. And what about other winners? Who were they?
Well, in the other classes, in Duratec, we had John Owen in the Duratec Bs and Giles Billingsley in the Duratec Derek Bell, both putting in very solid performances. In the Pinto Championships, it was close. However, in the Pinto Championship itself, we had Ross and Nick Hyett running as a pair, who took the overall honours, followed closely by Pete and Josh Needham, and then Paul Street. Whereas in the Historic Championship, we had Trevor Welsh, who took first from Clyde Steeper and Chris Snowden. So again, very competitive.
I certainly know a few familiar names there from people we've interviewed already in the season. So it's great to hear there's a real broad spread of talent within the whole community. That's fantastic. And in terms of then sponsors and supporters and officials, we've spoken to a number of those people this season as well. Are there any particular people that deserve a bit of acknowledgement?
Oh, yeah. We have to thank Creative Funding Solutions, our title sponsor, who've been immeasurably helpful in getting the series up and running. And, all being well, we look forward to working with them in future years. Also, we need to mention Yokohama Tyres, who've been a long-term supporter of the series. Polly Motorsports, currently headed up by Steve Polly, attend every event so that we are able to get our tyres at the circuit without having to chase across the country for them. This year, we also had some support from Broadtown Brewery, who helped funding some of the podcasts. Hence, you've probably seen the logos. And they provided a supply of excellent beers, which were not drank at the circuit, but given out to take home afterwards, and highly enjoyed. Other partners, we have Varley Batteries, riding Red Top batteries, Vision Motorsport Engineering, who have been supporting the Driver of the Day award, and also support from D2 Printing, together with Trotter and Dean, who helped with production of the newsletter. And the other person who always turns up is Kevin Gibson from KJG Photography, who does all the wonderful photographs that you see on our website.
Well, it does sound like there's a real community sense there that brings everything together and support from all different types of sources.
Indeed, definitely.
Now, looking ahead to 2022, Roger, I'm wondering what you're excited about for next season.
Well, first of all, we have our dinner dance and prize giving, which hopefully this year will be quite an event. We didn't have a dinner dance or prize giving last year due to COVID, so it's sort of 2-in-1 really. So we're going to arrange some live music provided by the excellent Gatsby Band, who in fact feature our very own Josh Law on drums, so we're all looking forward to that. Looking at their YouTube promos, it should be quite an experience. And then moving on, we have a fairly firm calendar now, providing we get approval from MSUK, with 14 events over 7 meetings, and that is available on the website.
There's going to be plenty of opportunity for all of those competitive drivers to be racing again.
Indeed. One other thing we're doing this year is we've had a lot of feedback from drivers of the Pinto engine cars and looking into why some are reluctant to come out on track. And the common theme seems to be they don't like racing in combined races. And there is nowhere in UK at the moment for Pinto's engine cars to have their own race. This has always been a chicken and egg situation. However, the club feel it's important for these Pinto engine cars to have the opportunity to standalone races so they can get out and enjoy themselves. So what we're doing this year is we're going to provide 4 races over 2 meetings where we will have separate races for Durotex and Pintos. So no excuse. We're putting the grids out there, so come and use them.
And if any listener wants to find out more about those specific races, should they look at the Sports 2000 website to get that information?
Yes, that is currently being updated, so it's not updated yet. However, I believe information is going out by email in the near future to those Pinto drivers who have registered an interest.
Fantastic. That sounds very exciting. Well, I look forward to seeing you around one of the circuits in 2022, Roger. Thank you for all that information.
No, we're definitely looking forward to 2022. It should be very exciting. So we're definitely looking forward to an exciting year in 2022. Kicks off on the weekend of the 2nd and 3rd of April at Donington, where we will be having 4 races. That's double header for the Durotex and a double header for the Pinto. So separate races as promised.
Fantastic. I'll look forward to that. Thanks, Roger, for providing all that useful information about what's been happening in Sports 2000 this year. And if you liked some of our episodes this year that talked about Le Mans, here's another story from Ross Hyett, who I spoke to in episode 8 about what it's like when the pressure is on, your team is doing well, and then you find a mechanical problem.
Another recollection of Le Mans was that I had the joy in the second time we were there, which was 1990, where we had the kinks in it. And it was much poorer for that, because the straight was great in that, once you got used to going through the kink, you actually had 6 kilometers to relax, and you got into the habit every time you went down it of sort of flexing your muscles, your shoulders, your hands and your legs, and just trying to get rid of some of the adrenaline out of your body. The result of the kink is that the first time you had the cars took a real beating. These were not like modern day cars where they got amazing reliability. The cars, you had to love them and get them home. So we ended up basically using 2 gearboxes as we went through this, and we kept going up and down the leaderboard, and we were second in the first time we did it, and got a chance of getting on the podium again this time. I was given the start, the middle, the end race. I get in it, and there's no clutch basically. So we've got now going towards the end, and I brought the car in and said, "Oh, there is no clutch." They just said, "Bring it in, it doesn't matter." So I brought it in, stalled it. You had no choice. About to get out, and John McNeil, the engineer, said, "No, stay in the car. Stay in the car. We're going to sort this." That obviously you're on the radio going, "There's no way we've got time to change the clutch. It's all over." It's not all over. Just stay in it. And I'll tell you what to do. Just listen to me and just do what I say. Fine. So I stood in the car, passed me some water, put some new tyres on it. I could see him fiddling around at the back. Felt the back get jacked up and thought that's a bit strange. He said, "Right, we're going to clear the pit lane in front of us. We've got one chance to do this. We're going to drop you onto water and spin the wheels and just keep going. Whatever you do, do not stop." Now, this is the old Le Mans, so it's not nothing like today where you've got a huge pit lane. This, you've got the width of 2 cars and these horrible old concrete pits. And so I sort of sat there trying to take this all in. And then I'm looking up the pit lane. All you can see is everybody moving in, everybody out of the way, giving one chance. And this whole row of heads of mechanics and engineers. And obviously, the poor old commentators are bored stiff trying to commentate. This is fantastic. They've got somebody who's have 120 litres of fuel who's probably going to burn to death in the pit lane. And this could be an amazing bit of history. So what I didn't realise is they put loads of fairy liquid on the car. So John says, right, okay, 5,900 revs. I asked him afterwards, why 900? He said, that's exactly why, just to keep you occupied. So 5,900 revs. And they literally just lowered the back with the wheels spinning in first gear, 5,900 revs, onto 2 buckets of water they'd thrown underneath it, and the wheels covered in fairy liquid. Needless to say, the car squirmed all over the place and finally shot off down the pit lane, much to the disappointment of all the engineers who were all looking there with cameras, all thinking this is going to be an amazing shot as he piles it into the wall somewhere. And I shot out the other end, and as I came out of the pit, I could hear the roar of the crowd, probably out of disappointment or just amazed I'd actually made it. I certainly do remember that one.
Well, it does seem like it can be a high-stress situation when you're competing in the Le Mans 24-hour race. And it's not the only piece of road that can be stressful for some these days, as Derek Bell explains, who I spoke to in episodes 6 and 7. What car do you drive normally now? And is it less exciting now that you get into a regular road car?
Actually, driving in Florida is not less exciting. I mean, I think it's more dangerous than the first lap of a Formula One race, driving every day down I-95 if you have to go down it. Basically, people will say to me, because of my involvement with Porsche, and I'm involved with Porsche and Bentley, I was the brand ambassador for the last 17 or 18 years with Bentley. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time. But people say, why don't you drive a Bentley? Why don't you drive a Porsche on the roads over here? And I said, there's nowhere to go. It's either north or south or east and west on the roads, all of the speed limits, and everybody's braking them. And if there's an accident, all hell breaks loose because they're 5-lane, 4-lane highways. I don't enjoy it at all. I live on a marina here in Boca. And there's 2 chaps. One's got a brand new 911 Carrera GTS, and the other gentleman's got a Cayenne Turbo, like an SUV. You've got to drag me out of my car. You've got to take me out in my car. And I go, but with all honesty, where are we going to go? I mean, anybody can put his foot down. I mean, I'm not going to go up the world swirling around lampposts trying to show how clever I am at mid-70s. So it doesn't appeal. And that's why in England I enjoy it. I have, a nice car too in England. So I get out and drive cross-country to Silverstone or across Europe when we can to see my daughter and go to different events. I love it. I just love driving over there. And it's not because I want to drive at 100 miles an hour. It's just the freedom of driving through corners and having a good time.
And finally, as we look ahead to next month's guest, I'll be speaking to Howden Ganley. Howden competed in F1 in the heydays of the 1970s and then went on to found Tiga Race Cars with fellow F1 driver Tim Schenken. Howden explained to me why they got involved in Sports 2000. Here's a little preview of what you're going to be hearing more about in the next episode. Why did you get into Sports 2000, Howden?
Yeah, well, see, it's one of my great decisions. Not. We were building Formula Fords, doing quite well. And then John Webb, from Brands Hatch, that John Webb, he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, Ganley, I'm going to start the Sports 2000 thing and I need you to build cars for it." And I remembered F100, which was another little sports car category that he'd started, that eventually fell over, stopped. And I thought, this is just going to be the same thing again. So I said, "Thank you, John." Put the phone down. That was it. Forgot about it. Anyway, then Tim Schenken came to me and he said, "Why don't we build Sports 2000? I gave him the same reason. It'll fail. Don't even waste your time. But he kept on and on at me. And eventually he said to me, "If I could come up with 3 orders, would you build a car?" Well, yeah, all right, if you insist. I mean, he's my business partner, so I kind of got to go along with that a bit. He said, "These guys have designed a car. They got everything done, the body molds, the lot. All you got to do is just, and they're going to use our existing Formula Ford corners, the uprights, axles, everything." So reluctantly, I agreed. So these characters brought this design along. I remember them bringing the bodywork into the shop, and I thought, oh my God, I was right in the first place. This will be a disaster. So I'm going on at Tim saying, see, look, this will be terrible. Anyway, so we built 2 cars. It was a nightmare. Only half the drawings were done. So we had to sort of make it up on the hoof to try to get the things finished. And sure enough, they weren't nearly as quick as the Lolas, which was the standard car at that point. So I'm telling Tim, now look, fine mess you got us into here. So I said, no more Sports 2000. I was right about it. And then a guy called Jack Nalaman, I know a lot of people will know Jack, he's Danish. He came to me and he said, for the following year, the first ones were in 77, it was the start of Sports 2000. 78, he said, I'm running a series in Denmark and I need 5 sports cars and I'd like to buy them from you. Oh, yeah. So, okay, I did a modification to make new body molds and everything. And it was a sort of a bit of a bodge, I must say. Make 5 cars, worthwhile order. And he took those away and did it and ran them. And then we had another chap from Holland came and he wanted to buy one. Okay, so we built another one. Then we had someone else from somewhere came and bought one. So in the end, we built about 7 of those cars. But I still wasn't keen on the whole thing. And then Ian Taylor, pretty famous name in Sports 2000, he said, this Dutchman has offered me his car to race at Silverstone in Sports 2000. Oh, okay. So I thought, well, here's a car and see what Ian can do with it. And then he brought a good engine along. And I remember we went to the race at Silverstone. Tim actually managed the whole thing in the end. And Jack Nalaman brought one of his cars over. So we get there. Ian puts the thing on pole. Whoa. And then start of the race, Ian takes off Nalaman. So Tiger's first and second running away. I'm thinking, well, this is not so bad, is it? Not a problem with his cooling drop back. I think he finished third. Anyway, Ian won going away. So we get back to the fact Monday morning, the phone started ringing and ringing and ringing. So the strength of that. For 79, this was near the end of the season, 78. 79, we sold 30 cars. So I said to Tim, you see, I was wrong. You were right. And we built 250 Sports 2000s in the end. We just transformed the business.
It does go to show how important success is then to attract interest, just as you had in that first race you ever did, that success then attracted interest in you.
People like winners. Yes, they do. But I still laugh at the fact that we so nearly didn't do it at all. But anyway, it made the company, and then it led on to Thunder Sports, and then it led on to Le Mans cars. And it took the company in a different direction, a profitable direction, because eventually I stopped building Formula Fords because I worked out we'd only made £50 a car over the 100 odd we built.
What were your concerns if you were going to go down this route?
Well, because of the failure of F100, of that previous sports car series. But the fortunate thing is, I guess, steered by Eric Broadley, when John Webb actually created Sports 2000, he got somebody who knew what he's talking about and laid down a car that you could see was very popular and chose the right engine, the right gearbox. It was done in a way that was very cost effective and a lot of people could afford it. And it was proper racing as well. It wasn't. The F100 thing was based around the F100 Firestone tyre, which probably wasn't the way to go. That was I'd seen an example of a formula that didn't catch on. Sports 2000 caught on worldwide. Fantastic, wasn't it?
On many of the other podcast episodes that drivers have commented on is that they can get great racing at a cost-effective price and that wonderful experience. I think that ethos still continues today, Howden.
Yes, it does, yeah. And the cars are very safe as well, aren't they? You know, most of them, I'm not say all, but certainly Lola and us, we had very strong monocoque chassis. The only bloke who really hurt himself in Sports 2000, I don't know how, was Bill Coombs, from Thruxton, when he was racing one. And I don't think anyone's ever been killed in one in a Tiger Sports 2000.
Was thinking about safety part of what your improvements were focused on?
Yes. If you look at maybe all the Tigers really, they are very strong in the front of the chassis because I don't walk very well because of a car, the Formula One car at Nürburgring, where it broke, suspension broke, and then when it went into the barrier, it chopped the whole front of the car off. It smashed up my ankles and legs and everything. So I was very sensitive to that. So you will not find a Tiger that is weak in that area. They're very strong monocoques, particularly. And people used to get at me for this. Because I'd suffered in South America, in Argentina and Brazil, South Africa, with front radiator Formula One cars, where you just get stewed in the thing. They didn't have drink bottles in those days. And you'd see guys collapsing after the race. But all the Tigers after the Formula Fords had side radiator, which makes just a massive difference. So little things from my driving career is the strength of the chassis, the fact the cockpit didn't fill up with hot air all the time, and the driving position, all little things like that came from my racing.
How did aerodynamics play a role in the design?
Well, okay, go to Sport 2000 again. I had driven for Matra, very aerodynamic cars, but not probably suitable for track racing. And then I went to drive for Gulf in the Mirage. And that influenced me because I saw what a download would do on a sport and how to achieve the download, although the Mirage had a front radiator, just contrary to what I thought. And I remember talking to somebody back when I was racing about aerodynamics in a car. And he said, imagine you're a piece of air, a molecule of air, and a racing car hits you at 200 miles an hour. Do you want to hit a sharp edge, or do you want to have something that you slide over like a waterfall? Let the air slide over the car. That was always my philosophy. Don't have the poor piece of air take splat onto like a fly on a vertical surface.
And I know in our previous episodes, we have interviewed John Eiley, one of the drivers this year, who works with the university to help some of the students there think about how to improve the aerodynamics of the Sports 2000 and in the Duratec category. I think people are still always looking for improvements to enable them to go faster and have that competitive edge that we've talked about already today.
Well, you want to go fast in a straight line, but you want a lot of download as well. And that's, I think, what we spotted was that some of our opposition, when we started in Sports 2000, they had very little download in their cars. We had a lot of download, but still managed to make it quick enough on the straight. So you're dealing with guys who are not professional. They're weekend racers. They need a car that's easy to drive and has got a lot of download. So that led us down that road.
It's been a real treat speaking to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sue.
Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Howden Ganley there, and it's whetted your appetite for next month's episode. Remember, you can keep connected to the Sports 2000 podcast by subscribing on whatever platform you use to access podcasts. I wish you all a very happy new year when it comes and look forward to connecting with you next time.